Welcome to the Ref Show. It's a bit of a difference this week. It's a respect special or an abuse special, if you wish. Not such a cheerful subject, I'm afraid, but we will have one or two stories to lighten the content, courtesy of Mark Lawrenson and Glenn Turner with us here in the studio, both of whom have been on various sides of abusive situations over the years. It's a big recurring problem. You Are the Ref, for want of a better pun, has blown the whistle on this or flagged it off or whatever. And last week, a national newspaper actually carried it big for 3 successive days. So it is a very topical issue. Lauro, university figures, I don't know if you've seen these, 2,000 referees questioned. Of those, 38%, that's quite a big percentage, said that they'd experienced some level of verbal abuse, at least once every couple of games. And 19%, nearly 1 in 5, had suffered physical abuse.
Well, I mean, no, probably doesn't actually, in all honesty. I mean, physical abuse is just the worst thing ever, because that would suggest that, you know, if you go onto the field of play as an official, whichever one of the 4 that you are, the fact that somebody might come and actually want to beat you up, punch you, whatever, I mean, never ever. And I think it's slightly less is the verbal abuse. Still not acceptable, but I don't know. I think it's a world we live in, Alan, in many, many ways. Is when I played, you can only talk about when you played, obviously. We probably gave the ref a bit of verbal abuse, and the ref gave us a little bit of verbal abuse back. But it was always, that's the way that it was. And it was, while you might, obviously we live in a completely different era, and, you know, the world's full of bleeding hearts, etc. And nowadays, oh, you can't do that. Actually, I think it made the game easier to ref and easier to play in.
Yeah. Your view as well?
Yeah, probably easier to manage as well.
Yeah.
From an official's point of view, it was a lot easier to manage. Personally, I've been in a situation where players have given me absolute dog's abuse, and you take it. Then you'll say something late on in the game back, they'll go, you can't talk to me like that. Like Laro says, there's the world's full of bleeding hearts. People want to give it. You give them some back. Oh,
Can't take it.
I'm offended.
Well, I think it's a man's game at that level, isn't it?
All levels, really.
Well, yeah, of course. But obviously, the schoolboys. Yeah. But at that level, and that's just the way blokes speak to each other, you know. And it's some people say, "Oh, that's unacceptable." Actually, no, it's not. It's just life, isn't it? And it just. You know, if you were refereeing me or Glenn, whatever, and I just say, why don't you? And he says, actually, why don't you? I'd just laugh. It'd be like, fair enough, let's get on with it.
Yeah. But you've been emasculated, or officials have been in that sense, in that you can no longer do that back.
No, we can't. No.
And that's never going to change.
And had it ever been shown that we had done that back, then we would have been, you'd been in a lot of trouble with
cameras, quite as many cameras in your day.
No, there were enough.
There was enough.
There were enough.
So looking at the general problem, and in the second part, we'll look at grassroots football, parks football, because that's where the problem seems to be greatest. But some say, you know, it's an example that's aped from the top. So is this a problem from the top down, or from the bottom up?
It is a problem from the top down, in that it covers all aspects of the game from the top to the bottom. But I think the lower levels of football use it as an excuse and a mask to hide behind. Because I'm not sure actually that Sunday morning football is that badly affected by what's happening in the pro game. They use it as an excuse. Let's take the example of the players, for example. If I go and watch an under-10s game, I don't see the players giving it the referees. Like those under-10s will have seen the players giving it the referees at the pro game. It's the mums and dads on the touchline who are the problem. Now, they're using it as an excuse for me.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. I agree, and it's like, you know, people trot out about, I mean, the Adam Johnson, the whole thing about Adam Johnson is a role model. He's a heck. He's never been a role model. It's absolute rubbish. And if you speak to kids as well today, you know, what do they want to be? Yeah, I want to be a footballer, but they don't say, I want to be John Terry, because, you know, he's got in trouble loads of times. It doesn't work for me.
I think it's not realistic or reasonable to expect a footballer to be a role model.
No. I think the only role model, in all honesty, in football is Messi. And I think he's absolutely untouchable. And if you know, he is a role model, all the rest of them, no, because everybody's got the foibles. It's life, isn't it?
Should the Stars, though, should we be so tolerant? Should officials be so tolerant now that we can lip read and there are so many cameras to give us of the abuse straight in their face?
No, I don't think we should. And when I was still active, we had this debate, this conversation a lot at our training camps when we used to have credible training camps in those days. And we said, we're as much to blame as active officials as the players, the managers, the coaches and the supporters, because we've let it go too far. Yeah. Now it's going to be very, very difficult to pull it back from the state it's in now to where it needs to be. It's doable, but it's not going to be an overnight thing now, because the officials are as guilty as anybody in the game for allowing the abuse to get as bad as it has before everybody's gone, we've got to do something now. It's terrible.
Every referee to act on it, though, wouldn't it, Mark? Every
referee, and I think it'd be chaos for a couple of weeks. But, like as in pulling shirts in the penalty area, if you started giving penalties, that would be chaos for a couple of weeks. But then the manager would say to the player, he keeps getting sent off, well, hold on a minute, you're giving penalties away, that's it. It stops. And there was, a few years ago, I know that TV wanted to mic the refs up so that, there was a confrontation with the player. Everybody sat in their armchairs at home, heard what was going on, which obviously was never really going to work. It would have been interesting, but I could see where they were going. But, my lad plays rugby union under 16. The respect is unbelievable. Absolutely, seriously. And even in the game with the referee, they can still smash into each other, the opposition, within the laws of the game. And it's yes sir, no sir. Even the coach, if he disagrees and he shouts from the touchline going, excuse me sir, that was offside. But I don't know, I think that's as much as anything just the way you're brought up.
The way you were brought up then as a professional, there you are, you played for Preston, you played for Brighton, most notably 7 years at Liverpool. Bob Paisley, Joe Fagan, Kenny Dalglish, I think were your managers. I don't recall that Liverpool team being as notorious for in-your-face stuff with referees as, for instance, some Manchester United teams.
Yeah, no, I didn't think we ever, I would like to think we didn't harangue the referee. You'd obviously shout for every single decision, but that's just the way life is. And I think also, if you look at it a little bit of a different way, I remember that you'd play teams and they say, oh, Liverpool, they always get loads of penalties and stuff like that. And we go, well, do you know why that is? So well, we're always in your box. So, we're going to create more chances and we're going to, because of the way that players. But no, and nobody ever said to us, just leave the referee alone. I think there was a respect from the likes of Paisley and Joe Fagan, Kenny Dalglish. Don't forget, Kenny Dalglish was player manager as well. And he would moan at all the refs like we would moan about a decision, but you would never harangue him.
You wouldn't get that mass confrontation.
No.
What about an incident, Glenn, that you were, I was going to say involved in, you probably were a bystander. You're there running the line and it's behind you, it's Arsene Wenger and Alan Pardew kicking off. I think we've got some images even of that.
Yes, so. yeah, I remember it well. It's just another thing that you have to cope with at that time on the day. I'm trying to concentrate on what's happening in front of me, knowing full well that it's kicking off behind me between two managers. From a personal point of view, that was kind of the extent of my involvement, that I'm just trying to concentrate on what's in front of me. But the fourth man behind is having to part two grown men who really should be behaving a lot better than that. And really, shouldn't they be concentrating on what's going off in front of them rather than wanting to push them?
I will say on the lighter side, it was never going to be a fight. Was it?
No.
Wenger fighting with anybody.
Not pay-per-view, that one, is it?
Absolute. Paper bag, so much pay-per-view.
Well, look, the guys, the Alex Ferguson I-likes on touchlines and Sunday Parks pitches all over are looking at that. I need a bit of that in my locker on a Sunday. Do they ape it?
No, I think it's just all about your character, isn't it? And it's just, I think one of the great problems with the fourth official is because he's there, they slaughter him. Yeah. What would they do if he wasn't there? If he was sat, of course, you're too accessible. That's the thing.
And why are the benches so close?
I always had an interesting conversation with the manager of Everton.
I'll tell you why they're so close, because you want to be as close to the halfway line as you possibly can, so you can see both ends. So I think that's why they're so close.
But you can take it 5 yards that way and 5 yards that way. That's 10 yards. To Rotherham, I think they did it especially for Steve Evans at the New York Stadium when they built it. There's like 50 yards between the benches.
Are you trying to say he's carrying a bit of weight? Or?
I'm just trying to say that he couldn't hear him from the other benches.
Listen, what's his pal called? Paul Rayner.
Paul Rayner.
Oh my goodness me, he's worse. He was worse than Steve Evans. God love him.
And still is, I think.
Well, yeah, still.
Possibly
Well, yeah,
at Leeds United.
Sorry, I was talking past tension.
Right, we've got plenty to talk about in part 2 of the ref show as well, where we take it to grassroots level, we talk about some of the behaviour, and we have some tales of terror on the touchline from this man, Glenn Turner. Join us for that.